Hey, Robert Baldwin here. This is a follow-up video to the last video I made about whole beat and single beat metronome performance. Please go watch this video if you're not familiar with that. A short recap is that a whole beat interpretation of a metronome mark from the 18th and 19th centuries results in counting like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Whereas a single beat interpretation is counted like 1, 2, 3, 4. So the upshot is a single beat interpretation is going to be twice as fast as a whole beat interpretation. Most performers today aspire to single beat interpretations. That's the predominantly used interpretation of what composers intended with their metronome marks, even though that results in literally impossible speeds to play. Music can't be played that fast. And if you're one of the handful of people that reacts very vigorously to this, then this video is not for you. What I'm going to do in this video is look a little more closely at Chopin's Revolutionary Étude to show some facets that I think underscore that Chopin intended for this to be played in a whole beat interpretation. Basically, this is outtakes from that last video. I don't expect anybody to watch this, but maybe you'll find it interesting. I did have some nice little sentences from my script for the last video that I feel like saying. So, sometimes you'll hear that metronome indications from this era, late 18th and 19th centuries. Sometimes you'll hear that metronome indications from this era weren't intended to be literal, but aspirational. Like the composer heard in their mind these physically impossible speeds and notated them in the score in case some remarkable humans in future generations could somehow realize them. But this really flies in the face of the entire purpose for a printed score. Everything else in a score is intended to be taken at face value. If a composer writes an A flat, they intend you to play an A flat. If they write a quarter note, they intend you to play a quarter note. Tempo is one of, if not the most critical factor in the interpretation of a piece of music. So it doesn't make much sense that this would be the one thing that composers didn't intend for you to take at face value. Of course, there would be some wiggle room since performers don't have perfect internal metronomes, like maybe plus or minus 10% of the indicated speed. So performance tempo is always a choice. I'm not talking about composers dictating how you must play it. But when many teachers use metronome marks to flog their students into getting like a little bit faster, this whole idea of play it as fast as you can, and then tomorrow add a couple more clicks to the metronome and do that for months until you can play it fast enough. It just doesn't work. It's a test to failure. If composers intended you to play as fast as possible, they would have said as fast as possible. But all those little dots on the page, all these little notes, Chopin intended you to hear these. I just wanted to look at some specific spots in the Revolutionary Étude that are so beautiful, that are evidence of why Chopin's music still sticks around, but you just can't hear it at single beat speeds. And by the way, I don't super have a dog in this fight. I'm not making a living as a performer of music from this era. So there's always people that want to show up in the comments and say, people like whole beat because they can't play fast. Well, come at me. I don't care. There's video of me playing fast. Even in the last video about whole beat, there's a fast performance of me playing the Revolutionary Étude. I don't have anything to prove. I can play fast. My whole master's recital is on this channel. You can watch it. And as a matter of fact, I play Beethoven's Waldstein Sonata it's a whole beat tempo. I mean, this was almost 30 years ago. I didn't know about whole beat. performance practice at that time. So, you know, when you learn better, do better. Always people in the comments saying whole beat amounts to flat earth. I just think that's the stupidest thing, because flat earth is easily disproven by paying attention to facts. So one of the things I want to do in this video is pay attention to the fact, which in this case is the score. Like, if Chopin's intention was for you to play as fast as possible, why would he have written that? I mean, he took time to write this metronome marking, the entire purpose of which is to provide a literal indication of what he was thinking with regards to tempo. Flat earth, it's so stupid. I mean, it's such a stupid criticism of the idea of whole beat. Fast is not an interpretation. Yes, there's an excitement inherent to a fast performance, but it's one-dimensional. You have to ask yourself, did Martin Luther King Jr. want you to be impressed by hearing his words delivered quickly? Of course he was a fiery orator, but don't you think he wanted us to understand his words? Of course he did. What about Greta Thunberg? Do you think she wants you to know what she means when she's talking passionately about climate change? Of course she does. Great thinkers intend to be understood, and Chopin was a great thinker. Beethoven was a great thinker. Liszt was a great thinker. It doesn't make sense for composers who have to be so meticulous to get their ideas on paper to be so non-specific with something as vital to music as tempo. Of course they wrote a tempo down with the intention that you would perform the piece at that tempo. An etude is a study intended to help a player learn a skill. How does it make sense to call a piece a study when singular superlative mastery is a prerequisite for playing it? All right, let's look at some specific spots in the Revolutionary Étude. Starting with these accent marks on the first part of the quarter note. So 4 accent marks. To me, it's as if he's making it explicit that these are the macro beats, not half notes. As opposed to a single beat interpretation, which would be, and go listen to anybody who plays this fast. You will not hear clear accents on those macro beats. As a matter of fact, the rhythm is very unclear. Why would Chopin have written an unclear rhythm? Why would he have taken time to write an unclear rhythm? Doesn't make sense. Such subtlety in this music. Why that 16th rest? I'll tell you why. Because it sounds cool. By the way, I didn't practice for this, and I don't care what you say. My fingers are wrecked because I played Mario Kart all day yesterday, which, by the way, I could beat you at. Anyway, yeah, so that little 16th rest, you don't hear that detail in a single beat performance. Why would he have been so detailed if he didn't intend for you to hear it? Legatissimo. Chopin's looking for a sound that's very connected in this opening line. Why would he have written that articulation if he intended single beat? Because at single beat, there can be no variety of articulation. There's only one way to play it, and you can't even really play it one way. There's 0 ways to play it. But he took the time to write for that passage to be smooth and very connected sounding. He wouldn't have written that if that wasn't something that he specifically intended you to hear in the performance. Such beautiful harmonies that you can't hear in a fast performance. Like this beautiful Lydian flavor in measure 72. Oh, yeah. I just love that passage. You can't hear it in single beat. What else? Modern interpreters mistake fire for destruction. Chopin wrote for this to be, what's the instruction? Allegro con fuoco, allegro with fire. Chopin means passion, not a lack of technical control. It's an etude. Technical control is an integral component. Fire doesn't mean speed, fire means passion. Passion means caring intensely about sound, in this case. Getting to the end of something as soon as possible is the opposite of caring. So, this music makes perfect sense when played at half the speed of single beat, but if you play it that way for your teacher or your degree recital, you might expect to be laughed out of the hall because no one else is playing it that way. That's gatekeeping. Anyway, the biggest reason that whole beat makes so much sense to me is just look at this notation. Strings of 16th notes. Now, anybody who's had a month of piano lessons, how do you count 16th notes? If you show a kid a string of 16th notes, they know that it's something like 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. To hear it played as that's 30-second notes. Now listen, I understand that there's no tempo inherent to a note value. Like quarter notes, half notes, 16th notes, they can be played at any speed depending on the performance instruction. But just in practice, 16th notes are going to be something like that makes sense. To play it as that's 30-second notes. I don't think that was in the realm of possibility for Chopin's soundscape. Not to mention the fact that he was a fairly frail dude. He wouldn't have been playing this athletically. But he was a remarkable player. It's just that the remarkableness of his playing wasn't located strictly in speed. Fast is not an interpretation. Anyway, so this video was just kind of my due diligence to cover the bases on this kind of stuff. This is not a channel about whole beat. It's more a channel of why music is gatekept for students. You know, you'd expect that you could take music lessons to learn music, but the unfortunate reality is a small percentage of students who enter music lessons leave those lessons with functional skills. And I think it comes down to a couple things. Whole beat, or not understanding whole beat metronome practice is one reason for that for advanced students. But even for beginner students, lack of teaching audiation is a prime reason that music students don't succeed. To that end, I do have courses online on my website that promote audiation. Audiation is hearing and understanding music. It's that bit about understanding what you hear that tends to get left out. You know, it's harder to teach, and that's why lots of teachers can't teach it, because We didn't learn that way, so we often don't have the money or time to learn how to teach that way, even though everything about teaching audiation just makes sense. So anyway, if you want to check out my website, it's mymusicgenesis.com. My big course on audiating harmonies and playing chords is called the Genesis course. It's on sale for $300 roughly, $297 I think. But here's the thing, I'm in the middle of a months-long process of redoing some of those lesson videos to integrate reading and theory. So as soon as I finish those new videos, the price is going to go up because it's going to be a more valuable, more thorough course. However, if you buy the course today, you will receive the new videos when they come out, and you will have saved $100, $150. I don't know what it's going to be, but if you buy it now at the lower price, you will get the integrated theory and reading videos as they become available. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I don't know if anybody watched this, maybe not, but don't play your music so fast. Music is written to be listened to. Thanks for watching.